The gavel slammed down as the crowd erupted in laughter. Scrap value. Look at that piece of junk. Who even towed it here? The man in the Brioni suit and polished Italian loafers didn't even lower his voice. 34-year-old Dr. Lena Voss stood motionless behind a concrete pillar at the back of the warehouse auction on Industrial Row. 4 months earlier, she had been worth $2.8 billion. Now her matte gray Helix GT sat under harsh lights with a shattered headlight and wiring dangling like exposed veins. Nobody in that room knew what was coming. The air smelled of motor oil and cheap coffee. Lena kept her breathing even. She counted the exits out of reflex. 3. Always know how to leave. The bidding opened at $200. It crawled to $650. Then a hand rose from the far side of the room. $1,200. The voice was quiet, certain. The laughter died. A man in faded navy coveralls stood calm among the suits. His name was Caleb Reed, 41 years old, single father, owner of a small diagnostic garage on the south edge of the city. He looked at the damaged Helix the way a surgeon studies an X-ray, reading something the rest of the room could not see. The Brioni man, hedge fund partner Victor Lang, smirked and raised again. The bids climbed. Reed never hesitated. When the hammer finally fell at $2,800, Victor's face had gone the color of raw steak. Lena watched Reed sign the paperwork, pay in cash from an envelope, then slip the dead key fob into his pocket like it was something precious. He had no idea the woman he had just outbid in silence was the original founder of the empire, now being sold for parts. That night, Reed's garage smelled of brake cleaner and the faint sweetness of his daughter's strawberry shampoo. 8-year-old Sophie sat at the small desk doing math homework while he rolled the Helix inside Bay 2. He started the way he always did, slow circles, fingertips reading every panel gap. The damage didn't add up. The electrical burn patterns ran backward. Someone had staged a cascade failure that never actually happened. 30 minutes later, he found it. Magnetic clips behind a modified spare wheel well. A matte black data brick the size of a paperback novel. Military-grade casing. The kind of hardware he had not touched since a life he left behind 8 years earlier. He locked the brick in the floor's safe, read Sophie a chapter of her spy novel, then lay awake until 2:14 a.m. thinking about the woman in sunglasses who had stood perfectly still while strangers laughed at her funeral. 2 days later, he plugged the brick into an old hardened laptop. It demanded a 12-character seed phrase. One call to an old contact led to another. The name that surfaced was Lena Voss's former general counsel, Elena Marquez. Lena arrived at the garage at 9:47 the next morning wearing jeans and a plain black jacket. She looked smaller than in the magazines, but her eyes were sharp. Reed set the brick on the workbench between them. "I think this belongs to you." She stared at it for a long second, then typed the seed sequence from memory. The screen filled with folders labeled Project Ironroot, internal ledgers, forged board resolutions, encrypted emails between Victor Lang and her former CFO, Marcus Hale. Every transfer designed to make her look incompetent while they siphoned $940 million into offshore shells. Lena's hands began to tremble, just once. Then she steadied them. They spent the next 11 weeks building the case. Sophie helped photocopy documents after school, treating the stacks like a treasure hunt. A retired forensic accountant named Thomas Greer joined them, bringing 40 years of grudges and immaculate records. The courtroom on the 12th floor of the federal annex smelled of lemon polish and fear. Victor Lang sat in the front row on the final day wearing the same Brioni suit. He expected another delay. He did not expect the judge to read the 43-page opinion aloud. He did not expect to hear his own name linked to wire fraud, securities violations, and conspiracy. When the gavel fell a second time, the order was clear. All asset transfers reversed, criminal referrals issued. Lena Voss's name formally cleared. Victor approached her in the empty corridor afterward. His Italian shoes squeaked on the marble. "I underestimated you. I am sorry. That was wrong." She looked at him until he dropped his gaze, then walked out without another word. 6 months later, the rebuilt Helix sat on a raised platform at the center of the new Innovation Summit downtown. The rear quarter panel still carried the original scuffs. A small brass plate read, asterisk, they called it worthless. One man looked closer, asterisk. Lena stood beside Caleb near the back of the hall. Sophie, now wearing a new lab coat 2 sizes too big, held her father's hand. The car had come full circle. So had they. Lena still runs the company, smaller now, employee-owned, with an internal audit division that answers only to the truth. Caleb kept the garage open 3 days a week. The rest of his time, he leads the fraud investigation team that bears no logo and needs none. Sophie has her own workbench in the corner where she builds circuits and asks questions her father answers without ever implying they are too big for an 8-year-old. The black data brick sits inside a small glass case on her bedroom shelf, a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things are hidden inside what everyone else throws away. In the end, the debt was paid where it mattered most, not in revenge, but in quiet competence recognized at last. The world keeps staging its wreckage. The only lasting answer is to keep looking when everyone else has already turned away.